What's up guys, Jimmy here with another Lots of Games video, and today I'm going to be going over some super expensive games. Now these are games I'm going to be going over. I'm going to be going over 8 games for you guys, with you guys. But first, before I do, I want to go over a couple things with you guys. Now some of you guys might have noticed that much like the first party lineup for the PlayStation 4 for the rest of this year, my presence on YouTube has been a little sparse, but I want to apologize first and foremost. Now, I will tell you guys, I have been working for the past couple of weeks night and day on a special project. I can't unfortunately give you any details at this moment, but I will say that it is video game related, something I'm very proud of, and I'm really hoping in the near future to tell you more about the details on this project I've been working on. So again, I do apologize for not being on YouTube as often as I usually am. I love making videos, and I hope you guys enjoy watching the videos half as much as I enjoy creating them. And thank you so much for subscribing and supporting my channel. It really does mean a lot. I read all the comments, trust me. Lots of times during the day, I check all the comments. Unfortunately, I can't get back to all of them, but I do read every single one, okay? I just want to let you guys know that. Second thing I have to bring to your attention is that a lot of people have been asking, Jimmy, are you all done with the episodes for Super Cheap Games? No, absolutely not. I will be doing episode 9 for Super Cheap Xbox 360 games very soon. I'm hoping in about a week or so to have a new episode for Super Cheap Xbox 360 games if everything goes according to plan. So be on the lookout for that. So as the reason why you clicked on this video today, I'm going to be going over super expensive games. And these are games going to be from multiple different platforms, okay? Let's start off with Musha. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Musha for the Sega Genesis. Now, Musha is actually a shooter. Now, IGN actually, a while back, they did a top 10 list for the best shoot 'em ups back in the day, and Musha actually was one of these. This is actually a pretty fantastic shooter for the Sega Genesis. You know, when I think of 16-bit shooters, the Genesis of course had them, the Super Nintendo had them, the TurboGrafx had a ton of them, but Musha, even to this day, after, you know, over 20 years, is still highly regarded as a fantastic shooter for that console, for that era, and even holds up today. To buy a complete copy for Musha on eBay, expect to pay over $300. You know, of course, that includes everything, you know, the box, the game. So over $300. Now, here's the great thing. Even though Musha is very expensive on the Sega Genesis, it is also available on the Virtual Console on the Wii. So if you have a Wii and you want a great shooter to buy, without having to break the bank, definitely check out Musha on the Virtual Console. Okay, so the next game I'm going to be going over with you guys is a Neo Geo title, and this is Metal Slug X. I actually had the chance to play this one, put some hours on this one, and I really enjoy this game. Of course, there's a lot of different Metal Slug games out there, and honestly, Metal Slug X for the Neo Geo is one of the more rare games for that console. And I've seen the game selling over $1,500 for a complete copy. But the good news is, if you have, well, depending on what you want to play it on, there is a PlayStation 1 version for Metal Slug X that you can get for a fraction of the price that the Neo Geo game is for. Of course, a lot of you purists out there want to play the original. Like I mentioned, you're going to have to spend well over $1,000 if you want to pick up Metal Slug X. But even though it's one of those rare titles, oftentimes you might have a rare game that's not that good. Metal Slug X is simply fantastic. Loads of fun. Highly recommended, especially if you want to play it on your PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, or PlayStation 3. Lots of fun. Again, pick it up for a fraction of the price on the PlayStation 1 version, and just an excellent game. Okay, so the next game is actually a Nintendo Game Boy title brought to us by the folks at Sunsoft. And the name of this game is Trip World. Now, the interesting thing about Trip World is a platforming game with a whole lot of charm to it. You play as Yakapoo, and you can actually shapeshift into 3 different shapes. Now, for one reason or another, Trip World for the Game Boy was never released in North America. It was released in Europe, and it was also released in Japan. But if you're wanting to get Trip World on the Game Boy, expect to pay on eBay anywhere from around $100 to $200. So around $100 to $200. Like I mentioned, a very interesting platformer with a really interesting art style. And if you're definitely into these types of games for the Game Boy, definitely check it out. Okay, so the next title I'm going to go over with you guys is actually a Sega 32X game. Now, not to be confused with Spider-Man Web of Shadows, which was released on the PC, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3. The 32X exclusive is Spider-Man Web of Fire. Now, Spider-Man Web of Fire, here's the interesting thing. This game was developed by the developers at Blue Sky. Now, this Blue Sky is actually the same organization that was responsible for the excellent Vector Man 1 and Vector Man 2 on the Sega Genesis. Those 2 games are just unbelievable platformers. So I was actually pretty disappointed when I first played Spider-Man Web of Fire. The gameplay actually isn't that great. Some of you guys might think it's okay, but it's definitely poor coming from, after playing Vector Man 1 and 2. And unfortunately, even though this game is not that great, expect to pay a lot of money for this game. I've seen Spider-Man Web of Fire sell for well over $300 for a complete copy. But again, if you're a huge fan of Spider-Man and like below average platforming games, check it out. It is definitely an interesting title with some interesting ideas, but overall it was just poorly executed. And I really think, I'm a big fan of Spider-Man actually, but I really feel that unfortunately they dropped the ball. Oftentimes with these licensed games, some of these developers get extra pressure, and that might have been the case in this situation. Overall, not a very good game, but definitely an expensive one. Okay, next up is an NES game, and that is DuckTales 2. Now, when I first had my NES, I knew that DuckTales was being released. I had read in the game magazine the game. I really was interested in the art style, and I knew it was coming. And I had the chance to play through it, put tons of hours on that game, and absolutely loved the first DuckTales game. DuckTales 2, actually, in my opinion, I didn't quite enjoy it as much as the first one. And actually, a lot of people didn't quite get the chance to play it. Today, definitely a rarer NES game that you're going to have to put up a lot of money if you want to pick it up. DuckTales 2, I've seen it selling over $200 for a complete copy, and that price definitely skyrockets in price depending on the type of shape that the label on the game and the box and the manual, and if it's complete and it's in pristine condition, you're going to be paying well hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But yeah, I think the DuckTales games are great. I played both 1 and 2. It'll be interesting to see if in fact there will be a remastered version, because the first remastered version for the first DuckTales game actually sold quite well. A lot of people played it. It'll be interesting to see if there will in fact be a remastered version for DuckTales 2. But regardless, this is definitely one of the more rare NES games that has actually a lot of fun, even though I didn't quite enjoy it as much as the first DuckTales game. So since we're already on the NES platform, let's talk about another game on the NES console. And this is actually a game that I really didn't know a whole lot about. And unfortunately, I was able to learn maybe more than I wanted from Billy and Jay from the Game Chasers. This is in fact a rare game but a very, very fun title, and I am talking about the very rare Little Samson. Oh, of course, I want to thank the folks at the Game Chasers channel for letting me know about this game. It's extremely, extremely fun, and I've seen this game, the cartridge alone, for selling over $700 on eBay, and for a complete copy, I definitely expect to pay over $1,000. But as occasionally, you know, they'll talk about this game, and they'll say, you know, that this, like I had mentioned earlier, this is one of those games that in fact is very, very rare, but at the same time it's very, very fun. And unfortunately, it is one of those games that is great, but you'll have to pay a whole lot of money to pick up. It's definitely another one of those games out there on eBay that you need to be careful about, because there's a lot of different bootleg copies being sold to appear like they're legit. So definitely do your homework if you're going to be spending this type of cash on this type of game. So next up, let's talk about a Super Nintendo game. And the game that I want to talk about with you guys is Hagani: The Final Conflict. Now this game kind of reminds me of a really futuristic cyber version of the Ninja Gaiden games on the NES. Very fast-paced, very fun. It's brought to us by the folks at Hudson Soft and Red, and I had the chance to play a lot of games by Hudson Soft and Red for the TurboGrafx or Turbo Duo, and certain moments in this game definitely reminded me of certain parts in one of my favorite shooters of all time, Gates of Thunder. It had like these moments where, like in Hagani, there's like in the air this massive like airship, which looked very similar in terms of its artillery and weaponry with some of the levels in Hagani. Very interesting. Now, the other thing I have to mention with this game, Hagani, is that in the Wikipedia game, it said on how that this game, in fact, was a Blockbuster exclusive, but I'm not sure if I can confirm that. I've just heard mixed reports, and I've read things on how gamers saw this in normal stores. I'm not sure if this game, in fact, was a Blockbuster video rental exclusive, so much as it maybe was just a really rare game that not a lot of people bought, or it just wasn't available in a whole lot of retail stores. Hagani: The Final Conflict, legit copies I've seen selling for over $700. For a while, I was like, what the heck, what's going on eBay? I've seen copies sold for under $200, but those games I've noticed are reproduction carts. So that's why there was such a big contrast in terms of price. And as far as complete copies, I've seen Hagani sell for over $1,000, but definitely a very fun, fast-actioned game on the Super Nintendo that I really, really enjoyed. So the final game I'm going over with you guys has been referred by many as the Holy Grail on the TurboGrafx 16. It is, in fact, the rarest game on the TurboGrafx 16 console. And, you know, I actually bought my TurboGrafx 16 directly from NEC, because actually a friend of our family worked at NEC, and he was able to get us the console for me, or help my parents get the console at a really deep discount. And so I'd always get flyers and also catalogs from first NEC and then down the road TTI, Turbo Technologies. And at the very end, I remember receiving a manual, and it had a sale for different TurboGrafx 16 games, and they had, like, you could get 3 games for $100, and one of the games that you could get was Magical Chase. And at the time, I was into shooters, but for one reason or another, I never got Magical Chase. And you want to talk about kicking myself today. Magical Chase, though, is a very fast-paced, exciting shooter. Extremely rare. Now, some of you guys maybe can correct me on this, but from the research that I did, the organization that developed Magical Chase, that company was eventually bought by, it was either Square or Enix, and so if my research is correct, it could be wrong. My guess is that the Magical Chase franchise or property is owned by Square Enix. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, please, guys. But if that's the case, I'm wondering if down the road Square Enix will in fact they've been doing, actually creating and developing a lot of different indies lately and working a lot of different games. If they have this franchise, this property, it would be awesome if they did a remastered, an HD remastered version for Magical Chase, because people out there are paying thousands of dollars. And in fact, that is the going price. A while back, I remember seeing a complete copy of the game for Magical Chase ended up selling at $6,300. And about a week or so ago, I saw someone trying to sell the game complete for like $100,000, which is outrageous and absolutely crazy. But again, be interesting. Whoever owns the property, you know, they have some potential there. Maybe might not sell a whole lot, but there's definitely a lot of people out there that'd be willing to check out a game that is in fact very, very rare on the TurboGrafx 16 console. Well, guys, there are 8 super expensive games that you can check out one way or another, whether you have a big wallet or you just want to check out YouTube and see the different gameplay videos, in-depth videos. And if you guys enjoyed this video, definitely click on that thumbs up button so I can know to make more. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later.